Hey everyone, welcome into the Thinking Crypto podcast, your home for cryptocurrency news and interviews. I'm your host, Tony Edward. On your way in, please hit that subscribe button as well as the thumbs up button and leave a comment below. If you're listening on a podcast platform such as Spotify or Apple, please leave a 5-star rating and review. Well, folks, needless to say, it is bloody out there. Today, Bitcoin crashed, and of course, altcoins are following. And Bitcoin went below $80,000. It flash crashed down to 75K, essentially retesting that support of back in April of 2025. Now, overall, the structure is still intact. We're looking at the daily chart here of higher highs and higher lows, but I'll keep it real with you guys. If this thing goes down further, then that thesis is invalidated, right? And we're going to have to go back to the drawing board. But this is where we often have to wait for the market to show us what it wants to do because we don't have a crystal ball. And we're just going to use the data and look at the different scenarios and look at which one has the higher probability of playing out. A good sign is that Bitcoin on the daily chart is extremely oversold. The RSI is below 30. That's textbook, right? That is not feelings, emotions, or hopium. That is simply textbook. You go look it up on the charts and study that. You will see the same thing I'm showing you here. Even on the weekly chart, we are approaching that oversold zone. So a bottom is forming here, and we're gonna have to wait and see how long it takes to form the bottom because that could play out over weeks, right? Before we bounce. But when you have this type of setup, plus extreme fear, plus the Wyckoff accumulation model we've been tracking for the past 4 weeks, we see that a spring is coming. The RSI is validating that the bottom is very close to being in. And again, the sentiment is in extreme fear where these are conditions conducive to a reversal, right? Markets are cyclical. They don't go down forever and things along those lines. And even the 2-week RSI is now approaching the zone where all major cycle bottoms have been found. And when you zoom in on the weekly chart RSI, you're seeing we're at the levels or very near the levels of the FTX collapse of November, December 2022 and December 2018 when Bitcoin went down to 3K. And those were the bottoms, right? And then we saw a reversal. Now, did it happen overnight? No, of course not. It played out over weeks and that led to rallies. So I expect a rally for Bitcoin, some sort of reversal. The question is it simply just a relief rally that does not go to new highs and it rolls over and we go lower, right? That's possible. So I'm giving you the bearish scenario or the bullish scenario of we bounce and continue to go higher because, again, that higher low structure is still intact. Now, like I said, let's see what happens. Maybe that gets invalidated, right? And then we're gonna have to say, yeah, that's it. Then look, I remember tweeting about this. I think it was about a month ago. I said, if this is the top of the market and we don't get crypto market structure bill passed, then we got bamboozled. And this is going to be a bad reflection on Trump because he, obviously launched a meme coin, a bunch of crypto projects, and this is what we get, right? So it might have been better that we stayed under Gensler and these things because at least the market was moving and we were, still making new highs and those things. But we shall see how it plays out. And let's see what the week brings us. But it's pretty tough. There are people out there saying, look, we're going lower here. Peter Brandt, and look, I know he's shorting. I know his tweets. He's saying next stop is 58th Street. The conductor of will be coming through the train collecting tickets to make sure you're on the right train. Choo choo Bitcoin. So done with silver. It is yesterday's story. So he's saying 58,000 is next. Could he be right? It's possible, but it doesn't mean he is. So again, it's about probabilities here, and we shall see how it plays out. Now, many of you know gold and silver are breaking down significantly. I think they may have hit their top, if not a local top. So we shall see. Even the stock market is showing some weakness here. Look at the NASDAQ. It's in the red. So is the S&P 500. So we're going to have to watch and see how the stock market is performing because, usually crypto follows the same direction as the stock market. So it's a pretty bloody weekend and even past week, right? Gold, silver, crypto, the stock market, everything is down. it is pretty brutal out there. But again, if we're looking at the metrics, right, we are seeing the conditions for a reversal. Again, it doesn't happen overnight, so this could play out over a few weeks. And we will have to wait till Monday to get data from Sentiment. One of the things I was highlighting, and even in my interview with Brian from Sentiment that was published on Wednesday, we talked about the retail crowd was still accumulating, even though they started slowing down a bit. We want to see less of that. So this big crash could have shaken out some of these hands, and hopefully that starts rolling over. The reason being, the whales always pump the market when the retail is going down, when they're scared and they're panicked, right? I don't make the rules. This is just the data. This is how markets play out, and markets love to do the opposite of the herd. So if the herd is still bullish and they were accumulating, then you can see here whales are going to slow their accumulation. But once retail starts going in the opposite direction, the whales pick up the momentum, the market makers jump on board, and boom, it starts rallying, then people FOMO back in. That's what they want. It's the same thing over and over. And when I realized this, it was so eye-opening for me, because I used to be one of the retail who was not looking at data and just moving by my emotions, and going through fear and greed and anger and depression, all that. Now I see the crash. I'm like, okay, buying opportunity, buy the dip. Not financial advice, obviously. Do your research, right? But the point is, I'm now working alongside of smart money. And that's why I was buying in November and December of 2022, buying Bitcoin at 15K, 16K, buying XRP and all the other coins at lows and lows. So as we went through the bull market and we started going up, my portfolio is going up versus people who went and bought tops and bought pumps, right? So I see this as an opportunity to get in. And even Barry Silbert, the founder of Grayscale and the digital currency group, he tweeted out, "This is a gift from the crypto gods, clearing out the leverage, crap tokens. A massive capital rotation into crypto is about to begin. Time to pick up your fighter. My picks: Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, Zcash, Tau, BitSensor, subnet tokens." So we shall see. Again, doesn't mean he's right. I gave you Peter Brandt's bearish scenario. I gave you some of the bullish charts and even bullish statements from big players in the crypto market. So we shall see which one plays out, folks, and we're gonna have to adjust our strategy accordingly. Now, there is cause for concern when it comes to Michael Saylor and some of these crypto treasury companies. So Bitcoin has officially fallen below strategy's average cost basis of $76,037. Now, obviously, Bitcoin bounced from this price point, but still, something to watch out. And even Bitmine, Tom Lee's Bitmine, it's facing a $6 billion paper loss as the Ethereum sell-off deepens. So, of course, altcoins, they bleed out worse than Bitcoin, right? This is just the nature of the market. So we got to watch these crypto treasury companies. Could some of them collapse? It's possible. The big difference with Bitmine is that you can stake ETH and keep earning rewards. So it brings in revenue and these things, right? But this is a big hit, needless to say, and to many of these crypto treasury companies, and hopefully they position themselves for these downturns. I'm sure many of you saw my interviews with many of these folks, and I always ask them, what happens in a market downturn or a bear market or some sort of crash? How are you going to be able to handle that, right? So this is where we shall see. As Warren Buffett said, when the tide goes out, you see who's swimming naked, right? So we're going to see what's going on. Folks, this episode is brought to you by Trezor, which makes self-custodying of your crypto assets easy. They make beautiful hardware wallets. I'm a user of the devices. I use the Trezor Safe 5 and 7. And folks, Trezor, they were the ones who pioneered and started all of this. They created the hardware wallet. They created the seed phrase setup, and then other competitors came around. And their new device, the Trezor Safe 7, is quantum ready. It uses top-of-the-line security. It's a beautiful device, fits really well in your hands, and has a huge screen. And they support all the major tokens and assets, folks: Bitcoin, Solana, XRP, Ethereum, Cardano, Dogecoin, and many others. You can go down the list here, even new tokens. They have a great software suite called Trezor Suite, which helps you to manage your assets. And of course, you can buy and sell within that. They also have a hand-holding service. So if you buy the device and you need to talk to someone from Trezor to help you get things set up, they have that service, which is really great. Not many crypto companies do. And don't worry, they do not ask you for your private keys, so you don't have to worry about that. And folks, if you use my code, Thinking Crypto, all one word, Thinking Crypto, you can get 5% off your purchase. So check out Trezor, link will be in the description. Now, folks, this is interesting. Brian Armstrong, dubbed as the enemy number one of Wall Street, in this weekend's Wall Street Journal. So he's on the front page, and it says the crypto CEO who's become the enemy number one on Wall Street. You know who's behind this? Jamie Dimon, folks. We've been talking about it, right? Yesterday we talked about the statements that were revealed of what Jamie Dimon said to Brian Armstrong, that he's full of shit and all kinds of stuff, right? Because Brian's been exposing the banks big time, talking about how they're fighting back. They are trying to block stablecoin yield. They don't want competition. And we've talked a lot about it, right? Jamie wants to keep those big fat bonus checks. He doesn't want to give you any fair interest or yield. He wants to give you 0.01%, and he keeps the millions and billions of dollars, guys. This is the game. But crypto is fighting. The word and knowledge and all these things are getting out there. The consumer is getting educated. So it's amazing. Jamie Dimon's pulling out all the tricks here and trying to plaster Brian on the front of the Wall Street Journal, saying they are the enemy and much more. It's it's really wild, but like the saying goes, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. So we are going through those phases, folks. Final news item: European Commission calls on 12 countries to implement crypto tax rules. So we are seeing across the globe the implementation of rules and regulation. So the European Commission said it will send formal notices to 12 countries for failing to fully implement the EU's tax reporting rules for digital assets. In its January infringements package released on Friday, the Commission, which serves as the European Union body responsible for proposing legislation and ensuring member states follow certain laws and regulations, said Belgium, Bulgaria, Chechnya, Estonia, Greece, Spain, Cyprus, Luxembourg, Malta, and the Netherlands, Poland, and Portugal would face letters of formal notice to fully implement the new tax, currency, and information exchange rules on crypto assets. So we know the EU has the MiCA regulations, and look, they're going to make all these countries get in line. Again, not banning, just everything needs to be tracked, reporting, taxes. The tax man's going to come for his cut. So we know blockchain and crypto is here to stay. Again, they're not banning it, and the future markets, economies, and governments will all run on blockchain rails. So the infrastructure is being set up here, guys, and it's important to know what's happening, especially if you live in some of these countries. All right, guys, that's the news. Again, bloody day. Let me know what you think about some of the data I shared about the RSI of us, I think, bottoming out, because that's a metric and a signal that you can, that is textbook, that you can use to get an idea of where we're at in the volatility moves and so forth. And please be sure to sign up for my newsletter. I know I told you guys I was going to publish on Friday, but then the market started moving, and I said, let me hold off so I can give you the most relevant write-up and charts and so forth, because if you don't want to catch a falling knife or say, oh, this is happening while the knife is still falling, right? So let's see if the market calms down tomorrow, and I'll do a write-up, and you guys can read through all the different charts and data points and take your time to comb through it. So make sure you subscribe. It's 100% free on Substack. Also, grab a copy of my book on Amazon. It's available in paperback and digital, and my course at mycryptocourse.com. This is a comprehensive course that teaches you everything you need to know about crypto. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate you all, and I'll talk to you all later.